Welcome back to Leaders and Legends on WDUR 1490 AM. This is your host, Steve Rao, and we've got Jim Rose in the house. He's the co-chair of the NC Connect campaign. We'll be talking about the $2 billion bond that's going to be on the ballot on March 15th, and we're going to talk at the end a little bit about where you can go to learn about it and when it's, when you vote and where you vote. But let's follow up. So we just talked about the investment in higher education. The one thing that you mentioned earlier was the parks, the investment in the zoo. So as a senior member of the city council, the one thing we see a lot of is the importance of parks and Morrisville, greenways.
Right.
So talk a little bit about where is this money going for our park system?
The great thing is you mentioned the website and at voteyes2invest.com, there's a complete detail of all of the parks, every dollar that's spent. There's a great detail of where those monies will be spent. And I would say, when you vote for a candidate, you never know if they're going to hold up all of your ideals, if they're going to keep all of their campaign promises once they get into office. The great thing about voting for this is we show you where every dollar will be spent. And up front that that's where the monies will be going for. And so it's a great thing to be able to know with confidence when you vote for something exactly how it's going to be laid out. But so many of our state parks are fantastic. All of our state parks are fantastic places to take your family and to go and enjoy. But each one of them over time declines in terms of the newness of the campuses, bathrooms and different facilities, parking. So there are all sorts of various projects that'll be done to improve the quality of each of the state parks that we have listed there. So a lot of it is just updating it, maybe making them safer, maybe making them a little more user friendly, but updating, I would say, primarily would be just maintenance and repairs.
Okay, maintenance and repairs of these parks. Yeah. So you can go to look at all the parks, and it's got the vote2invest.com.
Vote yes to invest.
Vote yes to invest.com, and you can have all those parks. Now, the other area that I want to talk about for a few minutes, and then I've got some questions before we break on one area of the bond that wasn't included, transportation, and I am concerned about that. But there's $179 million approximately going to NC State for the agriculture. Mm-hmm. This is actually important for the listening audience, is that for every $5 of food that you eat in North Carolina, only $1 stays in the state. And so there's these big industries like food process manufacturing, where you can create food and process and manufacture food, and you can create lots of jobs. Somewhere I've got a presentation on the jobs. I went to the NC Bio Center for a presentation. But there's a lot of innovation occurring within NC State. And these technologies can be commercialized and actually help stimulate economic growth.
Absolutely.
And so this is the reason why it's not an area of the economy you hear a lot about. So when we say innovation, normally around here, you think, well, I've got a new Facebook social media app. I've got Internet of Things. I've got a software as a service that's going to help doctors. I deal with innovation a lot in my career, even in my role at Alphanumeric, as we look at partnering and acquiring technologies.
Right.
But this investment would be for what I was saying, correct?
Right. So there's a sort of a twofold emphasis at NC State. One is for plant sciences, and that really revolves around how can we increase our ability to produce in terms of crop yields and just a more healthy plant, a plant that's more viable, it's more resistant to disease, to weather, to all sorts of things. But how do we get the most that we can out of our farmland and those sorts of things? And obviously I'm speaking well beyond my area of expertise, given that I'm a banker, but I can just tell you that the folks at NC State are worldwide leaders in agriculture, and this plant sciences building and facility will be state of the art and very necessary for us. When you look at North Carolina, agriculture is still the single largest industry in the state in terms of an industry group. We think of all the IT that's here in the Triangle and RTP, but agriculture still is larger in terms of revenue for North Carolina. We're the number one producer of sweet potatoes in the United States, wow, which is amazing. We're the number one producer of pork. We're probably number 3 and 4 for chicken and turkey. We still are a leader in tobacco, although tobacco use is on the decline in the United States. Worldwide, it's not. And so there are just, and I'm leaving a lot of them out, Christmas trees and all sorts of other things, but we are a huge a producer of soybeans and corn and different things. And so we're trying to really learn how do we get better and better at that. Then there's also a lab component of this, sort of a consumer services and ag services testing facility that will sort of go hand in hand and complement this plant sciences building in NC State. So a fabulous part of our bond campaign will be the agricultural sector, which is just so important to us. And when I've gone around the state and I've asked people, raise your hand if you've ever gone to a university here, if you've gone to a community college, then I say, raise your hand if you've had some fresh vegetables this week, or if you've had some fresh meat this week. That was produced by a North Carolina farmer. So certainly always want to keep that in the front of our mind.
And the final 2 areas we didn't talk about before we take a break, and we're going to end the segment talking a little bit about transportation and how this ties into economic development. But so there's also a $309 million in water and sewer.
Yes.
And we've talked on the show about water from the Jordan Lake rules, and now everyone's on edge with Flint,
Michigan, right?
But this would be $309 million to modernizing water and sewer.
Correct. And I would say the majority of that will go to rural areas that they don't have the tax base and the revenue base of a Morrisville or a Cary or a Wake County has, and yet they need the help, and all our citizens need the access to clean water and a proper sewer system. So it'll be updating a lot of aged systems out there in more rural areas, which is obviously very important.
Fantastic. And then the final one is the National Guard. And I know that the $20 million is for response readiness in case of emergencies, if there's disasters, whether it's a hurricane, a snowstorm.
Right.
We're all concerned about public safety.
Yes.
With the rise of terrorism and things like that.
Right.
So this would be to our National Guard, our dedicated brave soldiers.
Yes, absolutely. It's a great one. There'll be 3 state-of-the-art training facilities that are going to be built with these funds. And if anybody who's listening has noticed their National Guard armory in their town, some are in good shape, but others have really fallen into states of disrepair. And so we owe it to the soldiers, the servicemen and women who keep us safe. There's also that component of certainly public safety, but then on beyond that, I'm from eastern North Carolina, and when Hurricane Fran and Hurricane Floyd hit us, our towns were shut down for several days, and the National Guard really led the charge alongside of the Red Cross and others out there getting people clean water and rescuing people from their properties and just helping calm the public down and being a true public servant to us. So we certainly have a warm spot in their hearts for the National Guard, and that they're sometimes unsung heroes. You don't hear as much about them as you do the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, Marines, but the National Guard is critical to our state, and so we're excited to have that as a part of the program.
Well, we want to make sure, we need good water, we need good sewer systems for sanitation, for water, such an important economic asset as well. My own city of Charleston, West Virginia, that I grew up in, they had a water crisis there, and it's just the chemicals called HCM spilled into the river and just contaminated the water, and it was just, we had people calling us just scared that were living there, and now they're finally through that. But you always take for granted the supply of good, clean water.
That's right.
In terms of just sustaining the economy. And we look forward to learning more about the investment in the National Guard. We thank them for their service to our country. On that note, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come right back and with our last segment where we're going to talk a little bit about transportation, and most importantly, how you can learn more about this bond and some of the things that are going to be happening over the next few weeks.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back after the station break.